The deadly cold of Oymyakon, the whisper of death. Amid eternal ice. Oymyakon, the small village nestled deep in the Yakutia highlands of the Sakha Republic, Russia, is not merely a point on the world map, but a vivid symbol of the fragile boundary of human existence in the face of nature's ruthless power. With a population of only about 500 resilient inhabitants, this place is recognized as the coldest permanently inhabited settlement on Earth, where temperatures have reached a record low of -71.2 degrees Celsius, a figure that sends shivers through anyone who contemplates it. The cold in Oymyakon is not the ordinary chill experienced in temperate winters, with gentle snowfall and brisk winds. No, the cold here is a living entity, a silent assassin, slow and unrelenting, capable of claiming lives in mere minutes or hours if one is careless even for a moment. It permeates every corner of life, turning everyday scenes into potential death traps, from the moment one steps out the door to laboring outdoors, from children playing to tragic funerals, from wild animals to the very warmth inside the home. The deadly cold of Oymyakon is a long tale of the struggle for survival, where every frozen breath is not just a physical phenomenon, but a harsh reminder of the fragility of human life. Let us begin with the most basic, yet most dangerous scene: stepping outside without full protection. At temperatures of -50 degrees Celsius to -60 degrees Celsius, the air is so dry that humidity often falls below 10%, turning any exposure to the outdoors into a direct confrontation with death. When you open the heavy wooden door of the house and step onto the porch, the cold strikes immediately like an invisible wave, gripping the body from head to toe. Exposed facial skin turns pale white in the first few seconds, losing all sensation after 1 to 2 minutes of contact. If bare hands accidentally touch any metal surface, such as a door handle, iron railing, or even a car lock, the skin freezes instantly and sticks fast, tearing away layers when pulled free, leaving bleeding wounds highly susceptible to severe infection in this harsh environment. Just 5 to 10 minutes outdoors without fully covering the face or limbs triggers the first stage of frostbite. The skin blisters and reddens, cells begin to die progressively, leading to black necrosis, a condition that, without immediate warming and emergency medical treatment, requires amputation to save the life. Many adventurous tourists, or even careless locals, have fallen victim. A man who forgot his gloves while fetching firewood found his fingers blackened by necrosis minutes later, ultimately requiring amputation to prevent spread. Breath exhaled from the mouth freezes into millions of tiny ice crystals, producing the soft crackling sound known as the whisper of the stars. But behind this poetic appearance lies severe internal lung damage. Super cold air invades the respiratory tract, causing acute bronchitis or even freezing of the mucous membranes, leading to respiratory failure and death, if not brought to warmth immediately. In this scene, the deadly cold operates silently, without noise or warning. One may feel normal in the initial minutes, but then uncontrollable shivering begins, consciousness fades, delirium sets in, coma follows, and finally, cardiac arrest from full-body hypothermia. This is why Oymyakon residents constantly remind each other, never go outside without thick layers of fur clothing, face-covering scarves, and double gloves. Moving to the scene of daily labor, where the deadly cold becomes the most direct and relentless enemy. Life in Oymyakon requires residents to venture outdoors frequently to sustain existence, fetching water from the frozen Indigirka River, tending livestock, or repairing vehicles. When a man uses a chainsaw to cut massive ice blocks from the river's surface, several meters thick, sweat from physical exertion freezes instantly on the skin, forming a thin ice layer that conducts cold deeper into the body, accelerating heat loss. If he falls into the snow or must stand still for too long to rest, perhaps just 20 to 30 minutes, core body temperature drops rapidly, causing acute hypothermia, irregular heartbeat, plummeting blood pressure, and death within an hour without rescue. The village history records countless tragedies: a mechanic repairing a vehicle on the icy road, the engine failing to restart because the oil had frozen solid. He attempted to walk back to the village, but collapsed in the snow, his body frozen stiff before anyone found him. Or herders of reindeer losing their way in a diamond dust storm, tiny ice particles suspended like stinging needles, becoming completely disoriented, their bodies gradually freezing from limbs to torso, the final breath forming a small ice cloud before extinguishing forever. In this labor scene, the deadly cold combines perfectly with geographic isolation. Roads turn into vast, slippery ice rinks. All-terrain vehicles must run continuously 24 hours a day throughout winter, and any mechanical failure, such as a frozen battery or cracked tire, can become a slow death sentence. Even hauling ice blocks home carries risks. If the tow rope snaps or the sled overturns, the person may lie immobilized in the snow, losing heat so quickly they cannot even call for help. For children and the elderly, the most vulnerable groups in the community, the deadly cold appears as an invisible, yet particularly cruel shadow. Oymyakon children still attend school normally unless temperatures drop below -55 degrees Celsius, dressed in thick layers of fur and moving quickly along icy paths. But if a child plays too long on the natural ice rink, for example, catching ice crystals from frozen breath or sliding on the frozen river, their small bodies lose heat twice as fast as adults. After just 15 to 20 minutes, hypothermia sets in. Skin turns blue, uncontrollable shivering, clouded consciousness, and without immediate warming by parents or teachers, the child may stop breathing permanently. Locals recount heartbreaking stories: a boy who played too long on the frozen river surface, collapsing in the snow and found only when his body was already frozen like an ice statue, the last breath leaving a thin frost on his eyelashes. The elderly, with poorer circulation and thinner subcutaneous fat, are even more susceptible. Simply going out to fetch firewood or visit a neighbor for a few minutes without gloves or scarf can cause fingers and toes to blacken from necrosis, leading to blood infection spreading and death if amputation is not performed in time. In this family and community scene, the deadly cold seeps through the most ordinary moments, turning the yard into a lethal trap, the path to school into a perilous journey, and brief gatherings into opportunities for death to strike silently. One of the most tragic and haunting scenes is the funeral, where the deadly cold not only claims the departed, but directly threatens the living mourners. The ground in Oymyakon is permafrost, eternal ice hundreds of meters thick, hard as concrete, impossible to dig with ordinary shovels. To bury the dead, families must burn fires continuously for days on the surface to thaw the topsoil, creating a shallow grave. Throughout this process, funeral attendees stand outdoors for hours at -60 degrees Celsius, their frozen breaths forming thick white clouds around the simple wooden coffin. If wind blows strongly or the fire suddenly dies from lack of fuel, temperature drops rapidly, causing collective frostbite. Limbs lose sensation, skin blisters, and hypothermia spreads. Many sorrowful cases have occurred. A father mourning his son collapsed beside the grave from exhaustion in the cold, his body freezing before the ritual could finish, becoming the next victim of the very cold that took his child. The deceased is temporarily placed on the porch, colder than any freezer, the body completely frozen, skin pale and rigid like an ice statue, awaiting the grave. In this funeral scene, the deadly cold reaches its peak of cruelty, turning the rite of farewell into a fierce struggle for survival, where grief over loss is doubled by constant fear of the lurking death. Even for animals, creatures evolved over thousands of years to adapt to harsh conditions, the deadly cold remains an unavoidable threat at extreme temperatures. The Yakut horse, with its terrifyingly thick fur like natural armor, can withstand -70 degrees Celsius while moving. But if standing still too long in a snowstorm or trapped in deep snow, thick hoarfrost accumulates, covering the entire body and causing exhaustion from heat loss, leading to a painful death. Local cows, though cleverly fitted with leather bras by owners to protect udders from freezing, frequently suffer necrosis of hooves or limbs if outdoors too long. forcing owners to slaughter urgently to spare suffering. Reindeer, the symbol of Siberian survival, sometimes have horns and eyelashes encased in ice, losing the ability to dig snow for lichen, starving to death amid vast white fields. Local sled dogs, the sturdy Siberian Laika breed, if forgotten outdoors overnight, freeze gradually from limbs to torso, the final breath forming tiny ice particles before fading. In this wild, natural scene, the deadly cold sweeps away entire herds in the harshest winters, leaving frozen corpses like ice sculptures scattered on the snow, becoming meals for ravens and foxes, the only survivors in the icy food chain. And the greatest, most terrifying risk is when the deadly cold invades the home itself, the place presumed safest. The entire village of Oymyakon relies on manual heating systems, coal or wood stoves burning continuously 24 hours a day throughout the long winter. If fuel runs out in the dead of night or the stove fails from frozen parts, indoor temperature drops rapidly from a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius